Well, the gardener's on fire this morning. Psalm 122 said, "Come, let us go into the house of the Lord," right? Psalm 84 says, "I'd rather spend one day in the house of God than 1,000 anywhere else." Good to be here, brothers and sisters. Good to be here. We ought to be happy about that. Been a tough morning, but we're here. We're here. I'm sure I'm not the only one that had problems this morning. But we're here, and that's what counts. I'm going to talk this morning about, kind of pick up on where I left off the last time. And I want to share with you 3 sermons ago, I told Sylvia, this will probably be my last one. And here I am again. So God is good. He's using his miraculous power to see that I'm able to do what he has assigned me to do. I want to talk about some obligations that we have and some things that we should do and should not do this morning. And I'll draw your attention back to Matthew 25. And I would encourage you to read all of the verses between 31 and 41. No, I'll change that. Read the whole chapter 25. Chapter 25. And it will put in better perspective what I'm saying today. What's the first thing you want to hear from Jesus when you meet him? Listen to that. Everybody said, "Well done." Anybody want to hear anything else? The scripture that Brother Mark read said he'll separate the sheep from the goats. You want to be a sheep or you want to be a goat? So, if we agree that we want to hear "well done" from Jesus when he comes back for his bride, which is the church, let's see what we can do and not do in order to be able to hear that. 8 of the 10 commandments tell us what not to do. You ever thought about that? And it's said that a child hears no 40,000 times, I don't know who counted that, before his or her formative years. And if you're anything like me, you said no to your child a whole lot of times. Don't do this, don't do that, no, 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 no. So we are quite familiar with what not to do, even as we grew up. Some of us even believed in superstitions. Don't break a mirror, don't walk under a ladder, don't step on a crack, right, on the sidewalk. And we believed that too, at some point. And many of us are encumbered by psychological millstones around our neck that say we can't do something. Well, you think you are? You can't open a business. Why would you try to do that? You can't go to college. You can't build anything. We've heard these kinds of things over and over and over in our lives. And we've even heard some people say, "You can't possess that land." But thank God for the Joshuas and the Calebs, right? We wouldn't be here if it weren't for Joshua and Caleb and said, yes, we can possess this land, and we will. We are not afraid. So as we look at this notion of what we cannot do, I think it's real important for us to also look at what we can do and should do. You know, I remember seeing in a magazine once a cartoon. You know how they draw these little cartoons? And it had a picture of a skeleton inside a car sitting at a stop sign with cobwebs all over it. Think about that. A skeleton with cobwebs sitting at a stop sign inside a car. Had his arm out, you know. And I looked at that and finally figured it out. Nobody told him to go. So he stayed there. That's the way some of us are, though. We'll stay stopped. We'll stay in this mindset that we can't do certain things because nobody told us we could. And if all our children here is no, 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 they'll grow up thinking, I can't do anything. So you have to find some yeses and mix them in with those no's when the children are growing up, because they'll just be complacent and say, well, I'm never going to be anything, so it's no sense in me even trying. So let's find some ways to say yes as well. And I know we say no a lot for safety reasons, but there are a lot of yeses that we can say to our children and grandchildren so that they won't get stuck at that stop sign in life and look around 40 years later and they're still there. We go back and look at Matthew 25, as I said, the whole chapter. There are a lot of, we think about the do-nots and the sheep and the goats. And the goats, of course, as the scripture says, we're here, depart from me, I never knew you. If, on the other hand, we have abided by the do's, we'll hear the most important words of our lives, the ones that you said you want to hear. Well done, my good and faithful servant. And you'll read that in Matthew 25. So as we consider some of the things that we're instructed to do, I want you to keep in mind just a topic for this lesson. And it is, how can you hear well done if you haven't done? All right. And you can fill in the blanks. How are you going to hear well done if you haven't done? All right? Most of us know the things that we should do. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the things that we shouldn't do. But they are important as well, scripturally. We know that we have to do certain things in order to reach our heavenly goal. In addition to hear, believe, repent, confess, and be baptized, right? Most of us believe that after we're baptized, we still have to study, right? We still have to work and strengthen ourselves against that from which we came. As it says in Romans 12:2, we have to be transformed. We offer our bodies as living sacrifices, as the scripture said. Why? Because it's our reasonable service. You know what that really says? It says, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, that's reasonable based upon what you have received. It's reasonable to give your life to Jesus, because look what he's done for you. So if that's just at a minimum a reasonable thing to do, we should all be doing that. There are other things that we're called upon as people of God to do. If we want to hear well done, Because how can we hear, well done, if we haven't done what we're supposed to do? How can we do what we're supposed to do if we don't know what those things are? So we're going to spend a little time this morning talking about that. As I said, 8 of the 10 commandments say, don't. Thou shalt not. But when the Pharisees asked Jesus what's the greatest commandment, what did he say? Love God with everything inside of you and love your neighbor as yourself. He didn't say don't. He said do. Do love. Do love. So his response was positive. The process of faith, works, and grace is a great example of what to do as well. Faith, works, and grace. Faith comes by hearing. Romans 10, right? Hearing by the word of God. Faith is a gift from God that you get through that process. If you have faith, you were given that by God. And through your faith, you have to demonstrate, or you should demonstrate, your belief in your faith through your works. James said, without works, your faith is in vain. But we can't be confused and think that we're saved by works, because we can't earn salvation. It's prepaid anyway. It's already paid for. So, but faith gives us the access to the grace, God's grace, by which we are then saved. All right, let's understand that process and that sequence. So there are various things we must do if we believe, if we say we believe and we say we have faith. And we don't do these things because we don't do these things in order to be saved. We do them because we are saved. All right? Because you can't work enough. Not enough work you can do to earn salvation. Not enough. The Old Testament, we can find a good example in Isaiah 58. Now, this is taking something that we say we're not going to do. It's talking about fasting. And when you fast, you don't eat, right? I'm not going to eat. So in Isaiah 58, listen to the words. These are the words of God spoken through Isaiah. He says to the people, "Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for people to humble themselves? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes?" Is that what you call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this kind of fasting I have chosen to loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry, and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, "Here I am." Now that's taking something that's negative not to do. I'm not going to eat. But that's not all we should do. And you know, in the New Testament, when Jesus talked about fasting, he said, don't make your face all ugly and everything, let people know what you're doing, let people know you're fasting. That's not what it's about. And here we have a scripture that talks about what you should be doing while you are fasting. So it's about the do's, right? There are more do's in that passage than don'ts, because the only don't is don't eat. But listen to all those things that God said that we should be doing while we're not doing something. Jesus, like I said, spoke about fasting and how we should do it if we're going to do it in Matthew 6. So Matthew 25 talks about things to do. We have to keep watch, we have to be prepared, we have to be good stewards, and we have to work for the benefit of others. Now, when you read that whole chapter, you'll find all four of those. You have to be prepared. You remember the brides with the oil? You have to keep watch, because you don't know what day he's coming back. You have to be a good steward, like those three men that got the talents, and the one who got one, he was so scared of the master, he buried his in the ground. Didn't multiply it, didn't take good care of it. Master came back and said, well, what you got? He said, I put it in the ground. I knew you were a hard guy, so I wanted to save this one and give it back to you. And he said, you didn't multiply it. You didn't do anything. Cast him out into outer darkness. Didn't he say that? So there are things we have to do. And the other one is to work for the benefit of others. You just heard it in the Old Testament, and the same thing applies in the New. Verses 31 through 41, as I said, deal with acts of mercy that all of us can do every day. And they don't depend on our wealth, our physical ability, our intelligence. They're freely given, these gifts. And Jesus demands that our personal involvement in caring for others' needs, we should not put it all on the government, y'all, or on the collective church, y'all. We all have individual things that we can do. And the Bible says, if you did it for the least of these, you also did it for me. So we have to be concerned about the least of these. I write a newspaper column every week, and the one I submitted Friday, it dealt with the way we treat our elderly and our poor in this country. And it said that a country can be best judged by how it treats the least among us. And I think I titled it, The Cost of Living. The cost of living. Because I found out that in January of 2017, the people on Social Security are only going to get like 0.2 to 0.5% cost of living increase. That's a maximum of $6 a month. $6 a month. And that's the first time they've done an increase in 3 years. So the cost of living has gotten so high that some of our elderly and disabled and poor people can't even survive. They can't pay enough to live because of prescriptions, because of things that they need to survive. So they find themselves having to make decisions between rent and food, life-saving prescription drugs, and heat or cooling in the summer. That's the way a country should be. Can you imagine getting $6 more a month? I mean, you're not getting anything anyway. The average Social Security check is $1,300 a month. So if we would look at Matthew 25 more, and our government officials would look at that and let that be their guide, they wouldn't even think about talking about, well, we're going to give you a cost of living increase that's less than 1%. They wouldn't even think about that. But unfortunately, most of them don't let the Bible be their guide. But you might want to see that article. They carried in the Columbia newspaper, the Carolina Panorama, but it's also online. Romans 12:6-8 says, since we have gifts that differ according to the grace given us, each of us is to exercise them accordingly. If prophecy, according to the proportion of his faith. If service, in his serving. Or he who teaches, in his teaching. Or he who exhorts, in his exhortation. He who gives, do it with liberality. He who leads, do it with diligence. He who shows mercy, with cheerfulness. We all have some kind of gift. And Romans 12:6-8 tells you how to use that gift, regardless of what gift you've been blessed with. And we have to do that to the glory of God. We can't just say, I'm all that because I'm a teacher.
All right, that's right.
You know, we have to do it to the glory of God, because were it not for him, we wouldn't have these gifts. These are the things we should do, y'all. Do. Because how are we going to hear well done if we haven't done these things?
That's all right.
All right? So here's some more things we can do in order to hear well done. And I was thinking about how long this might be, but it may go long, but it may not. I don't know, as Brother Jones says.
Take your time.
But you know, they call it the Lord's Day, not the Lord's few hours, or the Lord's couple of hours. They call it Lord's Day for some reason. No, I wouldn't be here all day. There was this joke that I heard. The people got out of, one guy walked out of the church and somebody was outside. He said, well, or is he finished? He said, yeah, he's finished, but he hadn't stopped yet.
All right.
So I won't be doing that. And, 1 Timothy 6:11-12 says, but you, man of God, flee from all this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. It says, fight the good fight of faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you were called. Positive things to do, y'all, not to do. They're active and forceful words of instruction to us. Christianity is not a passive religion, y'all. It advocates waiting for God, that advocates waiting for God to act. We can't just sit around and wait on God to act in our lives all the time. There are some things we should do and can do and must do, because why? He blessed us with certain gifts, right? If you don't use your gift, that's like slapping God in the face. I don't appreciate what you gave me. I don't want it. Romans 9:20 says, how can the created complain to the Creator and say, why did you make me like this?
All right now.
Wouldn't that be something? You turn around and tell God, well, why did you make me like this? Why did you give me this gift I don't like? That's nonsense, y'all. For 2 Peter 1:5-7 says, for this reason, make every effort to add to your faith. Here's some more things to do, y'all. Add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. That's something to do. That's something all of us have been instructed to do. Once you get this gift of faith that God gives you, then you're supposed to add things to it. There are things that you are supposed to do once you receive that gift of faith. That's where the works come in, but again, they can't earn salvation. They can't earn it, but it's reasonable. It's reasonable for you to do this because you're so grateful and so happy, so joyful that you've been saved. So somebody, you're about to get run over by a car and somebody runs out there and knocks you over and gets you out of the way. What are you going to do? Just stand up and walk away? No. You're going to be so happy and grateful for that person. If you got a transplant or something, anybody here had a transplant, you're going to be happy for that person that gave you whatever it is they gave you, a kidney, for instance. You're not just going to ignore the person. You're going to say, you gave me the gift of life. What can I do for you? That's what you're going to say. So it's the same thing with God. He gave us these gifts. What are we going to do for him? Titus 3, verses 1 and 2, talk about doing what is good. It tells us to be ready to do whatever is good. Then it says in Titus 3, 9 and 10, it says, avoid foolish controversies and arguments, because they are unprofitable and useless. You ever been dragged down into some ridiculous conversation that's not going to take you anywhere but right back where you started? They call them circular conversations. The Bible says avoid that stuff because it's foolish. It's not going to get you anywhere. But a lot of times we get into these silly discussions about things. But it says right here in Titus not to do that. These passages in Titus tell us what to do and what not to do. 3 John verse 11, it says, imitate what is good, not what is evil. Another do. We have to think about and not concentrate solely on what not to do. Because in the Old Testament, there were the commandments we know. And there would not be a need for Christ to have come and died if the Old Testament commandments were all right. God said, these people are never going to be able to do this. They had I'm told, 600 laws or something to follow? Today, we'd be in big trouble trying to follow all those laws. Most of us couldn't get dressed because it said don't wear certain clothing. We wouldn't have any lights in there because it said don't be turning on lights. That's what a lot of people practice today. A lot of the Orthodox Jewish people, they try to follow everything, but we wouldn't have too many children, at least bad children, because it says stone them. If they get bad, we'd be walking around half blind and toothless, for an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It'd be a lot of them wouldn't be enjoying some of the food we like either, would we? Shrimp and stuff like that. We'd have to check out everything before we ate it. But the Old Testament is for our learning. And when we contrast and compare what those people went through back there and look at the fact that God said, I have to send this perfect sacrifice in order to stop the priest from having to go into the Holy of Holies every year and ask for forgiveness for all these people, I have to sacrifice myself. And Jesus came down, the perfect sacrifice, and gave us what we have today so that we don't have to do those kinds of things anymore. We're not encumbered with 600 do nots. All right. We have 2 from his mouth. Love God with all your strength and love your neighbor as yourself. If all of us just practiced that, we'd have a much better world. But back to the things that are reasonable for us to do. It's reasonable for us to use the gifts that he gave us and the blessings to bless someone else. You get blessed, you pass it part of that blessing on to somebody else. That way his blessings are multiplied, y'all. He gives one, but it turns out to be 5 or 6 because you keep passing it on. In Acts 20, verse 35, Paul said to the elders in Ephesus, upon his departure back to Jerusalem, he said, in everything I did, I showed you that by this kind of hard work, we must help the weak, remembering the words of the Lord Jesus himself, who said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. That's the way we should be thinking. It's better to give than to receive. But you have to be able to receive if you're in need. You can't walk around, oh no, I'm all right. You have to allow that person to help you because that's their blessing. They're trying to give you part of their blessing and you're rejecting it. Therefore, not allowing them to be blessed because it's a blessing to give, y'all. John 9:4. As long as it is day, we must work. Do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. If we're trying to be like Christ and he worked, what are we supposed to do? We know we need light or life to work when it becomes dark, and death. When it becomes dark, we can't work anymore. You know those old songs they used to sing in the church, work while the night, for the night is over, or come, and what's the other one? What was that? Yeah, I mean, it's about work while you can. Work while you wait. You know, we're all waiting, but what are you doing while you're waiting? We have to reach out to the lost, y'all. Matthew 28:19, we all know about that, the Great Commission. Jesus told his people what to do. And a very short book, Jude, in verses 22 and 23, says, have mercy on those who doubt. Now listen to this one. Snatch others from the fire and save them. To others show mercy mixed with fear, hating even the clothing stained by corrupted flesh. We have to reach out and snatch folks from the fire. And that's what evangelism is all about. It's what going out and trying to find new converts and bring them back. It's about all those kinds of things because we know what's ahead for them if they stay out there. We have to feed the hungry, protect our children. If you look at Psalms 82, 3 and 4, it says, defend the cause of the weak and fatherless. Maintain the rights of the poor and the oppressed. Rescue the weak and needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. That's work, y'all. That's some work. Those are things we have to do. We're instructed to do. We can't just go through life worrying and thinking about only ourselves. We need to use the gifts that we've been given to help others. Bear one another's burdens. Galatians, let me give you the right, it's chapter 6 and verse 2. Help one another, support one another. Stand up for righteousness, brothers and sisters. Stand up for righteousness. We see a lot of wrong stuff going on in this world. And many of us just go through life not standing up against it. That's partially why we're in the shape we're in this country. Because good men and women haven't stood up and said, this is enough. We're not going to allow this. Somebody said, evil persists when men of goodwill do nothing and say nothing. So we can't just stand idly by as Christians trying to be like Christ and not speak out against, say, the social security issue. Somebody ought to be writing some letters, sending some emails, making some phone calls, saying this is outrageous. How would you treat the least among us this way?
All right.
We have work to do. That is, if we want to be like Christ.
Amen.
A lot of us say we want to be like Christ, like I wrote in my book. We want to be like him without the suffering. Yeah, I'll be like Christ all the way up to the suffering part. Isaiah 51:7 says, "You who know what is right, don't fear the reproach of men or be terrified by their insults." Don't worry about that. In the book of Luke, it says, don't worry about man who can only kill the body. You better be more concerned about God who can kill the body and the soul. The very Psalms 118 says it's better to obey God than man. And Peter repeated it to the king when he was called before him. I hear what you said, but as for me, I'm going to obey God, not you. So I'm going to keep on preaching, keep on saying what I'm supposed to say. Because the only thing you can do to me is kill me. The only thing, the worst thing you can do. Isaiah 59:15 gives us yet another thing to do. It says, truth is nowhere to be found, and whoever shuns evil becomes a prey. He said the Lord looked and was displeased that there was no justice. Now let's think about justice. We hear a lot of talk about that today, right?
All right.
And Martin Luther King said, justice is not simply the absence of tension.
All right.
It's the presence of justice. No, he said peace, I'm sorry. Peace is not just the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. And he said that from this Birmingham jail, I believe, in his letter. When people were telling him, well, you need to slow down, Martin. You're going too fast. You're trying to do too much. You're making a lot of people mad. And guess who was telling him that? Supposedly men and women of God. Now you better slow down. You shouldn't be saying those kinds of things. He said we need justice in this country. And that's what people are fighting for now, even today. Still the same thing. Thinking that, I'm going to step aside here and say this. Most of the times that I've here in recent years where we've seen police brutality, the family comes out and says, well, let's be peaceful, let's just have peace, right? Even Rodney King said that after he was beaten back in 1992. But I think some of the people say that for the wrong reasons. Peace is justice, the presence of justice. Not just, well, don't go in the streets and do this. Now, I don't agree with all that. But that's not what peace is. Peace is justice, and if there is no justice, we're going to continue to see these things happen over and over again. So we have to understand what justice is, what peace is, and how do we attain that. But just to stand up and say, well, let's just be peaceful, let's just have peace, how do you do that? The only way you can do it is to have justice. Because if you don't have that, somebody's going to get mad, somebody's going to get angry, somebody's going to throw a brick, somebody's going to start a fire, somebody's even going to grab a gun and try to retaliate. That's not peace. But it's not peace because there is no justice. We have to stand up for things like that. Finally, what we can do and what we have to do is persevere. Persevere. Hebrews 10:36. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. That's how we can hear well done, because we've done the things that God has taught us to do. Perseverance is hard, y'all. It's a struggle. I think about Sister Cobb all the time. She's in the hospital now, I think, going through a lot of things, a lot of pain, and trying to continue on, persevere. A lot of you have had issues in your lives where you had to fight through. It's hard to persevere. It's hard to endure through all the things that beset us. But we have to persevere to the end, no matter how we reach that end. And that's a big struggle for most of us. I know it is for me. I'm not saying this as some kind of paragon of strength. I guess if the bottom line, and I had my way, I probably would not be up here trying to talk and all that, when I know that, it's real difficult to do. But while my strength is being sapped and taken away, even in my fingers where I can't even button my shirt, my mind is still here. And if I'm abiding by the to-dos, one of which I mentioned, what gift do you have? Whatever that gift is, you're supposed to use it to the glory of God. And right now, you're seeing the glory of God sitting right here. I'm telling you, you're seeing it, because we don't know what one another go through, what we go through in order to even be here. We don't know. We just come together and we see everybody, and like I said, we shake hands, oh, I'm fine, but we're really not. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't want to invite other folks to your pity party. But the reality is that we're all going through something. We all have struggles. But to be here is a blessing. And I remember my father, he got sick later on in his life, and he was, he became very weak and couldn't do things for himself and everything. And he loved to go to church. He used to lead singing, he just loved that. And he couldn't go anymore. And I remember one day I was thinking about him, and I went out to the house, and I wasn't in the church at that time, but I said, get yourself together, I'm gonna take you over to the church. He couldn't even walk in. And so he got dressed, and I picked him up and drove him. Well, he said, I just want to go back. But he couldn't go in. So I took him, and we sat in the driveway until everybody came out, so he could see them and shake their hand. That was, he just had to be there in spite of his condition, and he was very debilitated. He didn't have what I have. He was just went through a lot and was debilitated. But it showed me right then, because later on in life, when I started doing sermons, I gave one called I Can See Clearly Now. And I did that because of him, because I didn't really understand his desire so much to come to the house of the Lord. I didn't get that. Well, you can't go anymore. They understand, But when I did that sermon, I can see clearly now. I started studying about that and said, a lot of times we don't know and we can't see what other people see and what they value. And as you get older, how much, if you've been in church any particular length of time, how much that means to you. Like I said this morning, coming into the house of the Lord, is something we should all be happy about. We should come in here happy because we're here. And understand that sometimes people who can't be here, like Brother Butler, when he was over there at the nursing home, I bet you he wanted to be here, but he couldn't. So Brian and Danielle and others went to be with him. So I think as we reflect on those around us, our family members, our friends, we should put ourselves to any degree possible in their shoes and try to understand what they are seeing. Look at life through their eyes. Because I'm telling you, being unable to do certain things is very, very difficult. Mentally. So keep that in mind as you reflect on today's sermon. The summary of this, the application, I believe, is that you begin, if you haven't already, to make Bible reading a habit. Make it a habit. Just like you have other habits. You have certain shows at 9 o'clock, boom. You right there. It's a habit. You go to see it. You have certain things that you do every day or every week, a habit. Well, make Bible reading a habit as well. Put it on your list among the first things to do. Proverbs 4:22 says, "For these words," meaning God's words, "bring life and radiant health to anyone who discovers their meaning." Not just physical health, mental health. Because mental health can drive you to do some things and take you some places you don't want to be and make you stay longer than you ever wanted to stay. Because there's a mental issue going on with you. Set a specific time for prayer. Now, this is something I have to work on. We say we pray before we go to bed, we pray when we get up. There's some other times during the day we need to be in prayer. And another one, attend church regularly, brothers and sisters, because maybe one day you won't be able to come. You better take advantage of it now. You better enjoy it now, just in case you get to that point where you can't come and you're lying somewhere and say, I wish I were there. I wish I had done more. Wish I'd have been there more. And support the church. Support the church if you're able to. Do as much as you can. That's financially, through your spiritual gifts, and begin to invest time and energy in godly relationships that sharpen and strengthen you spiritually. God will say things to you in His house that He won't say anywhere else. So if you don't come, you miss it. You miss it. That's why it's important to have a foundation of reading the scripture and praying at a certain time and reflecting on things that you've heard and things that you know are right to do. Because how are you going to hear, well done, if you haven't done what He tells you to do? I'm going to close by sharing this. The devil is at work every single day. He doesn't take any time off, y'all. Our work will either be for him or to be for God. There's no in between. What did it say in Revelations? If you're lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. You got to be hot and you got to be cold. The devil uses words of enticement to trick us into believing we're mortal and that we have an endless amount of time to live, or that we can even delay the coming of Christ. We must suppress the words of the devil and tell him to get behind us. And you know what the devil's really saying to you? Let me give you this example. And don't take this the wrong way, but the word hell is in the Bible, so I can use it. If somebody out on the street or wherever you are in your job or something tells you, go to hell, how would you feel? You feel bad, wouldn't you? Some of you might want to exercise a little physical justice on it, wouldn't you? But at a minimum, if somebody told you to go to hell, you take that pretty seriously. But that's what the devil's telling you. He's telling you to go to hell. But what are you doing to rebuff him? You know what God is telling you? Come to heaven. Think about that. The devil's telling you where to go. God's telling you where to go. If somebody told you that on the street, you'd be ready to fight and you know it. Or you need to make that choice as who you're going to hear and what you're going to do about it. 2 Peter 3:9 says, the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. God is patient with you. He doesn't want anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. God is literally telling us to come to heaven. I want you here with me. I don't want any of you to perish. Come to heaven. So who are you going to listen to today, brothers and sisters? Jesus. Who are you going to listen to? God or Satan? The choice is yours. But understand that all of our decisions have consequences. Whatever decision we make has consequences. So just to remind you what Jesus had done for us, let me give you just a few things and the lesson will be yours. Look in Ephesians 1:3-14, and you'll see everything, many of the things that Jesus had done for us. And I'll give you just a few. I'm not going to read the scripture. But he's blessed us. He chose us. He predestined us. He adopted us. He redeemed us. He forgave us. He freely gave us grace. He revealed his mystery to us. He included us. And then he marked us with a seal of the Holy Spirit as an earnest or a guarantee or a deposit of our inheritance until he comes back for us. You read those few verses and you'll see all of those things that he's done for us. Question is, what are you going to do for him? He's already done a lot for us, Brother Manny. He's given us so much, and you can see it right there in those short verses there in Ephesians, first chapter. So, as I said, God is saying, come to me. And for those of you out there who have not committed your life to Christ, or you haven't come, I ask the question again, how are you going to hear well done if you haven't done what he said? He's telling you right now to come. You won't hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, if you haven't done what he asked you to do. Revelation 3:20 says, here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If you hear me and you open the door, I'll come in, have dinner with you. I'm not going to knock your door down, though. You have to open the door. He's telling you to come. I'll come and eat with you if you want me to. So again, as I ended the last lesson with that last verb in the Bible, is come. Come. Revelation 22. So come this morning, because if you don't, and you're standing a guilty distance away from God, you'll never hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," because you haven't done what he asked you to do. If there's anyone who would desire prayer as well, you feel like you have gotten away from the things that you should do, we're going to ask you to give your petition as we stand and sing, and we'll do that after the song selected. Tenderly Jesus is calling.